Hi, I'm Ian McCulloch. I was the star in Lucio Fulci's Zombie. And what I was hoping was that you would join me for a digital fan event on October the 3rd. And I'll be doing a Q&A, your time over there in the States of 4 p.m. EST. And that is going to stream live on Facebook. So following the Q&A, you can join me on Zoom for a one-to-one video meet and greet. But if you want autographs and video greetings, you can also find them available on fullempirepromotions.com. Hope to see you and hear you. Bye.
Since the discovery of the first zombie is getting worse by the hour. There's chaos in the streets. The National Guard cannot control the situation.
Hi, Cassie DePaiva here. Join me for my digital fan event on October 4th. I'll be doing a Q&A at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that's going to stream live on Facebook and YouTube. Then following the Q&A, you can join me on a Zoom for a one-on-one video chat. It'll be a great meet and greet. Autographs and video greetings are also available on fullempirepromotions.com. See you then.
You're holding my hand too tight.
Baby, I ain't holding your hand.
Card check. Alex, card check.
Hey everybody, welcome to another Full Empire Promotions live event. I'm Dominic. I'll be your host for this special Q&A with NICHOLAS LEA. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, so thanks so much to everyone who's watching us live. If you'd like to leave any comments or ask Nick any questions, please feel free to do so, and we'll get to those during the broadcasts. If you'd like your own private conversation with NICHOLAS, following this Q&A, he'll be doing one-on-one video meet and greets on Zoom. You can have 5 minutes to chat with Nick about whatever you'd like, and we'll even send you a recording of your meeting. That's a great addition to any X-Files collection. In addition, personally signed photographs and video greetings are also available on FullEmpirePromotions.com. Sales for the Zoom sessions will end in about an hour, so if you're thinking about that, you have until about 5 p.m. Eastern to go and book your Zoom session. Sales for the autographs and video greetings will be available until Sunday, October 4th. Well, that's enough jibber-jab from me. I'm sure you guys didn't come here to see me. If you did, you probably need a little bit of counseling. But I digress. Let's bring on our special guest. You may know him as the baddie, Alex Krycek, on The X-Files, as well from his notable TV appearances on shows such as Once Upon a Time, V, Supernatural, Arrow, The Killing, and many, many others. Recently, he's appeared on the revival of The Twilight Zone, and you can catch him on the upcoming TV series based on Stephen King's The Stand. I'm happy and honored to welcome a friend, client, a charming and charismatic talent, and one heck of a nice guy. I mean, he's Canadian. They're all nice, except William Shatner. But this guy's extra nice. Nick Lea. Nick, how are you?
Yeah, good, man. That is nothing if not like the best intro I've ever had. Thank you so much.
Well, you got to show the support. I mean, I've even got my coffee cup.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. And also, just so you know, Mitch has Mitch's Pelagies, Annabeth has Annabeth's Gishies, and we've now dubbed your fans Nick's Legions.
That's reasonable. I like that. That's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah. So we've got some of them tuning in.
Well, how about just Legion or Legions? Because it isn't.
Yeah, I guess it would be Legion. I guess it would be Nick. Yeah,
I think I like that.
Nick's Lea, Lea -Gion.
Got it.
Yeah. So how are you doing in your corner of the world?
Well, my little corner of the world, we're doing just fine. My partner Crystal and I had babies 20 months ago, so we are on a schedule all the time, and those babies have 2 of them. They've saved our bacon, so we're completely invested in them. And if there is a silver lining to all this COVID nonsense, it's that the 4 of us are together all the time. Crystal's currently working, so I'm Mr. Mom.
Yeah, and double trouble because I know you've got twins.
Yeah, double trouble, right.
Yeah, well, I want to start off with your background a little bit. I know you were born in BC. Did you grow up watching? You
don't like it?
Oh, you zing me.
Hey,
you zing me. I was gonna say I want to talk about your background a little bit. Is that drywall?
It's laughing plaster, actually.
Okay. Did you grow up in BC, and were you a film buff?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I was born just outside of Vancouver, and moved into Vancouver when I was 2. So I'm a Vancouverite, born and bred, proudly. And I did a lot of things as a kid. I played a lot of sports and stuff, but I was also like a really avid TV and movie watcher. Like I never missed the Channel 7 Seattle broadcast of the 3:00 movie with Sandy Hill, which was like on every day, every weekday, and I'd make sure that I was home at least to watch the movie every week. And I grew up in love with movies and actors and story and spectacle, and like I can still remember sort of seeing Jason and the Argonauts for the first time when I was young. So yes, and that's one of the things I can really say about my life is to say that I'm doing what I dreamt about doing when I was a kid, and I'm not a lot of people can say that, and so I'm one of the fortunate few, I think.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you have anyone either on screen or off screen that were a major influence on you deciding to pursue acting?
No, not really. I didn't do anything in school. When I was in school, I was playing sports. I was playing rugby and I played soccer all my life and track and field and all that kind of stuff, basketball. And then, I was playing in a band for a number of years. I sang in a band. And then a friend of mine came into a store that I was working at. And he said, I met this acting coach. And I know that you'd mentioned it in the past. Maybe we should go meet her. I took the afternoon off work a few days later and I went to meet her. And she said, you should be an actor. And I went in the next day and I quit my job and started studying, became a bartender to pay for my bills and started acting. Started studying to be an actor. I didn't work for a few years, but
very cool. I noticed a lot of actors that I talked to did bartending before acting. I think it's probably a good correlation because you kind of learn about people and different personalities. As an actor, you play different personalities.
I worked in strip joints actually. A buddy of mine in Vancouver, his dad owned a few strip joints, and that's where I started. Was working as a bartender in strip joints. So maybe you want to talk about character analysis.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like aliens will be repeating. It seems like aliens would be a repeating topic in your career. You started off early in your career in a film called Extra 2.
I did.
With Jan Michael Vincent.
I did.
About a killer, vicious alien. Was this your first experience on a studio film set? Do you remember?
I'm not sure that was a studio film set, but it was a film set for sure. It kind of was. I had done something prior to that, which was it was a TV show where they brought on actors and a real life psychologist would pretend that they were his clients, and that was the very first job I did. But I think the second, if I'm not mistaken, was Extra and Extra 2. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just simply had no idea what I was doing.
Well, I think it probably worked for that movie.
I still don't to some extent, but I'm starting to catch on slowly. It's one of the things about X-Files, and frankly, any role I've played, but for sure X-Files is I would really truly love to go back and or go forward and do those roles. Try take another swing at some of those roles because I'm like any art form, you tend to get better as you get older or the more time you spend at it. And I think I'm just a much better actor now than I was 30 years ago,
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a fan of the sci-fi horror genre in general?
Listen, that's a lot of the stuff that I watched when I was growing up. Like I said, Jason and the Argonauts, and I remember The Fly. Vincent Price's The Fly really specifically, and seeing the Boris Karloff stuff for the first time, and especially Frankenstein because it's so. It kind of really is penetrating that movie. There's very little soundtrack, and it's so quiet. And his performance is kind of way ahead of its time in a way, But I absolutely sci-fi and fantasy stuff was a big part of my viewing when I was a kid.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
One of your early TV ventures was a series regular role on the cop drama The Commish.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about getting involved in that show? And did you have to do any sort of training with real police?
I did no training with real police. I probably could have used a dialect coach now that I look back in some of those clips. But no, it was, I tried. Oh, I do remember that audition. I went in and read for the producers, and it was a scene where the Ricky Caruso, the character I played, was supposed to be really fired up about something. And I remember that all those guys were sitting at a desk, and I remember walking up and banging my fist on that desk as hard as I could. I suppose that kind of maybe surprised them. Anyway, I got, that was sort of the biggest role for sure that I'd gotten up until that point. So yeah. And acting, especially for film and television is well, even and in theater as well, is always done on the job for the most part. You can go to a class, you can learn how to break down scripts, you can learn how to analyze a character, all that kind of stuff, but there's so much technical stuff attached to being on a set. So that's where you learn, is the doing of it, the actual being on the set and doing. I've got a friend who decided to become an actor, and he kind of just did his first role the other day, and he said he was blown away by how much he needed to know that he hadn't learned yet. This is gin.
Right. Most people who talk to me drink that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Well, you had a small role in the 1995 film Bad Company. The film packs a strong cast of veteran actors.
It certainly does. That's where I met Lawrence Fishburne. That was pretty exciting.
Did you learn any sort of acting tips from being around people like him and Ellen Barkin and Frank Langella?
I remember Ellen Barkin. She kind of took a shine to me for whatever reason, and I ended up sort of hanging out with her a bit in their trailer and talking, and on set talking, and I think I have a real blind spot for sort of my long-term memory, so I don't remember a lot of specifics, but I do remember her being really, really friendly and really kind, and he was very cool and tall and slick, and when you're on set and you don't really know what you're doing early on, those experiences tend to be sort of like white lightning, like they happen and then they're done, and you're like, what did I just do? So. I don't remember real specifics about that, but I do remember that location, and I do remember those two actors.
Right.
And they were kind, and they were professional, and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's always good to learn those types of things from people early on, because it sort of molds the way you tend to be with others as you go.
Cool. Yeah, Melanie is watching. She says, "I'm at work, but I could use a gin. 2020 is driving everyone to drink."
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't even want to start with that.
Well, you would stay in the world of TV with
let's do that.
With guest stars on Sliders, Highlander,
Mm-hmm.
Burning Zone, before landing the role of Vic Mansfield on Once a Thief.
Yeah, correct.
Did you enjoy this role?
I did. I enjoyed the doing of it. Without getting too into great detail, listen, working with John Woo was such a treat, right? I was sort of at a point in my career where things were kind of going well for me, and I was getting the odd offer, and it looked like I sort of had some control over what was happening, and I remember that role not being offered to me necessarily, but they sort of held it out in front and said, are you interested? And I think Broken Arrow or Face Off had just come out, and Travolta was in both, and this was before John Travolta kind of went weirdo, but he had this major resurgence in obviously in his career, and I thought, well, John Travolta must know what he's doing, so I think working with John Woo would be a good idea. He only did the pilot, and I felt like the pilot was really good. I felt that the show afterwards got kind of goofy, and I'm not really interested in goofy so much unless it's supposed to be goofy. But the pilot was really exciting, and I got to do a lot of physical stuff. There was a lot of gunplay and a lot of jumping around, and I love that kind of stuff. The show itself, I felt, could have been better.
Yeah, well, it looks like it only lasted one season. So
yeah, and it was supposed to be on Fox originally, right? Like that was the whole idea. Fox was doing it, and then something happened at Fox where they changed a bunch of people at the top of the food chain, and then the new people that came in decided they wanted to do something different, and at the 11th hour they pulled the plug on that show. So it ended up being a Canadian production filmed in Canada as opposed to an American production filmed either in the States or in Canada. Right.
You mentioned having a lot of gunshot scenes and action scenes. Do you tend to do a lot of your own stunts?
I do. I think, I'm sure there's exceptions, but I exclusively almost do all of them. So, if you've watched the X-Files, you'll see me hanging from 17 floors by one arm, or running out of exploding cars and that sort of thing. I love those experiences. They're super memorable, and they're really exciting, and they really require tons of focus. and they're thrilling as hell.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we have to talk about the X-Files. You joined the cast in 1994 as the cunning and charming Alex Krycek, a role that most of your fans are drawn to. Can you take us back to the origins of
what did they say? What did they say in that that TV Wire came up with that list of, you know, I don't know, favorite X-Files characters, and what did they say about me? Crystal?
You were pretty high up there on the list.
Well, I was, and I got to tell you, the list came out, and I saw the list. It was, you know, I saw the heading 25 most whatever characters on the X-Files, and I was like,
yeah.
Am I going to be on it? Like as I was going from 25 down to 24, 23, 20, 17, 18, 16, 15, I was like, oh no, I may not even be on this list. I thought, you know, it'd be great if I'm on it. And then as I got down to the bottom, I thought, oh no, this is horrible. I'm not even on this list. And then I was number 5, which was kind of nice. But what did they call me? Like my pansexual appeal. And I'm not 100% sure what pansexual means, but
you're sexual to pots and pans. You like to call
yeah, I've got there's a real attraction there for me, kitchenware. But what was your question?
No, I was said take us back to when you first found out you were going to be involved in the show.
Oh, well, that was great. I mean, I did one episode called Gender Bender in the very first season. And that's where I met Rob Bowman, who directed that episode, and he and I, that sort of became a friendship and a kind of a really fun collaboration as far as I was concerned. Yeah, like 2 or 3 or 4 scene little arc for me, and then of course famously Jillian, the actress, the person, got pregnant, and they asked me or they brought me in to audition for the role, and I got it, and it sort of changed my life.
Yes. When you've got the first call saying, hey, we want you to come in and do an episode of the X-Files, had you been a fan of the series?
No, I hadn't seen any of it.
Okay.
I mean, I can't remember what Gender Bender was in the first season, what episode number it was, but I'm not even 100% sure the show had aired. I guess it must have, but I don't remember seeing the show, and so I didn't really know what it was. I only sort of knew what that particular story was, and that's where I met David, who went on to be a friend of mine, and Jillian, of course.
Yeah, well, when you joined the show, it already had established characters and great talent playing them.
Totally,
including David, Jillian, Mitch, Bill Davis.
Yeah.
How were the main cast very receptive and accepted of you coming on set? Did they welcome you?
Yeah, I think David and I are really close in age, and so I think if I'm not mistaken, he and I kind of started a friendship really early on. He was in Vancouver. He didn't know a lot of people. He was sort of on set all the time. And I remember, so chiefly I worked with David at the beginning, and then started to work with Mitch, worked with Jillian, but a little bit less so. So Mitch and I became friends. David and I became friends, and it's a remarkable experience to be able to go onto a show, especially once the show, kind of caught fire, and go to work with your friends all the time, and Kim Manners, the director, the late great Kim Manners, Rob Bowman, who's gone on to many other fantastic things. So I started to feel like I was part of a little community, and then the show really started to take off, and that really sort of gave me a leg up in my career. I could easily have not gotten that show and easily been wallowing away in anonymity still.
Right.
Like a lot of actors.
Yeah, that could be you could be doing Extra 19 by now.
Extra 19. Hey, wait.
There is actually an Extra 3, I think, or 4.
Is it better or worse than 2?
They're all pretty good. They're all pretty, what you're expecting, cheesy killer alien movies.
That movie cost like $147, I think. So, and it really is a kind of movie that probably requires $114 million. So it was, they had to cut some corners. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and that's like $6 in US. So
That's like the oldest joke in the world now. Eh?
I know.
That's like almost fell off my dinosaur kind of joke.
Well, did you feel your character of Krychek was well written? Did you ever get any scripts, and when you read it, you thought he wouldn't say that or he wouldn't do that?
That's a good question, Dom. You know, I would sort of pop up fairly regularly on the show, and then I'd have to wonder sort of what happened to my character in the interim. You know, when you didn't see him, what was he doing? And so you never knew. You just never knew. And I always say to when I'm asked, you know, when I'm talking about this at cons and stuff, that you know, it was like Christmas. Every time you get a script, you'd open it. Especially, I felt for my character. I mean, less so for some of those people because their character arcs were fairly straight ahead. Mine kind of zigged and zagged all over the place, and you know, you just never know. You'd open up a script and you start reading it, and you go, okay, so like I'm gonna be have an alien oil inside of me, and I'm gonna be lying on top of a spaceship inside a missile silo, puking alien out of my face, or I'm gonna be hanging from 17 floors by one arm, or I'm going to run out of an exploding car, like I was talking about earlier, or I'm gonna get shot in the head and come back as a ghost, or you know, just like it never ended, right? And I loved that guy that Krychek had 9 lives or 10. And it was fun, eh? Like you sort of were constantly on your back heels a little bit because like if you look at David's character, for example, you know, pretty delineated sort of beginning, middle, and end. My character just kind of went all over the place. So I sort of gave up expecting to sort of see a real obvious character arc, and just invested more in the playing of the experience, you know, the moments.
Right.
Yeah.
Did they ever let you improvise? If you would read a script and you'd say, "Can we change?" You know, he would say this instead of this. Were they pretty easygoing with that, or was it stick to the script?
It was less about improvising lines for me than it was improvising moments. You know, there's in Dwayne Barry, actually, is it Dwayne Barry or Ascension? I think maybe Ascension, where David goes up the gondola. This is a very, very small example, but there's the gondola operator, and I walk up and whack him in the head, and then kind of like fix my hair afterwards, which is not like, you know, the most remarkable improvisation ever in the world, but there was always room for me to bring a little bit extra to those moments. I'm trying to think of others.
Well, it's those little nods like that fans connect with.
Yeah, and you know, there was a number of moments where like they would hold camera and I would be looking away, and then I'd look up into camera, those were all my kind of choices. And I would quite often try to, when the character came on camera, I would quite often try to hide my face so that there was a reveal about about my character. There's a number of examples of that. If you go back through the show, you'll see, like, I was always trying, because I knew that I was lucky enough to know that some of the fans really liked the character. So I like to kind of give them a little sort of surprise, you know, when the character would show up.
Yeah, I've noticed in some episodes, Krychek was very like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You know, he'd be looking at you, but it would be someone else talking.
right, for sure. You know, I could go back and watch a lot of those moments and think to myself, oh, you know, that was my idea to do this, or that was my idea to do that. In Gender Bender, and these are stories that I tell at cons, so if people have heard these stories, I apologize. But in Gender Bender, when Rob Bowman was directing, the idea was I was making out with this woman, and she gets out of the car and turns into a man, and I was just supposed to look through the window and see this woman morph into a man. And I said to Bowman, I said, what are the chances of us like steaming up the window because they're having sex inside, and the window's steaming, and I clean back the steam on the window, and then there's the reveal, right? And he's like, great idea. So let's go get a kettle. So somebody ran off and got a kettle, and in between takes, they take the kettle and hold it up to the window or what's another example of that? I've forgotten the episode now. It was one of the ones we shot in LA. I was meeting a guy on top of a building, and Rob Bowman was directing again. I said, "Hey, Rob, what if there was like, I've got my coat and it's up, and it's sort of like this, spy who came in from the cold." And I said, "What if there was just like a little bit of wind, like just blowing the collar of my coat? It's a small little thing, but maybe it'd be cool." And he's like, "Yeah, I like it." So they go down to the truck and they bring out this massive fan, and they put it up, and sure enough, there's my collar just kind of like blowing in the wind. So, there was always time, especially as the show went on and there was more money and a little bit more time to do things. There was always, that's the way I am. I always show up with like, hey, how about this idea or that idea? I did that a fair bit on Vertical Limit, I have a death scene at the end of Vertical Limit where Bill Paxton, good old dear Bill Paxton, rest his soul. It was, I can't even remember how it was written now, but I rewrote the end of the scene. I took it to the director and I said, how about this? And he said, yeah, great, let's do that. So, I always like to get involved if I can. And if people say no, that's fine. But then quite often they don't. So
yeah, I think that's a great thing because you're connecting with the character.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that there are things that I hope there are things that people watching will like, right? If I like it, hopefully they like it.
Yeah. Well, you had a really great group of guest starring actors that would come in and out of X-Files.
Totally.
Can you talk about one or two or three that left an impression on you, either on screen or off?
Well, the very first guy that really left an impression on me was Steve Railsback. He came in to play Dwayne Barry, and I remember, and I knew who he was, because he'd done some pretty great work prior to that, and I just remember watching him very closely because I was a pretty young actor, even though I was, I was 27 or 28 or whatever when I was doing that, because I started so late. I didn't start until I was 25, right? Most people start way younger than me. That might be why I was so shitty so early on, was because I didn't know what I was doing. And although it looked like, I should know what I was doing, but I didn't start until I was 25. And that was like walking into my first acting class at 25, not getting my first job. I didn't get my first job till I was, 28, 29. But so watching a guy like Steve Railsback was a gift, right? Like it was, I was very fortunate just to sort of be on set and watch him do his thing. And, Steve Railsback is actor studio, back in the day, the 50s, right? The beginning of close to the beginning of the real revolution in American acting, right? So I was very lucky to sort of get to be present for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Steve was one of the first actors to play Manson. He did it eerily well.
He was not only one of the first, he was the best.
Absolutely.
And it's fascinating, right? Because the guy was so good, and he's nothing like that.
No,
he's a nut, and I love him, but but he did it so well that it kind of pigeonholed him a little bit for a while there, right?
Yeah, I remember the first, Steve is one of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first con that we did together. I hadn't met him yet, just on email and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting out of the elevator. You know how some of the elevators talk? They say going up or going down. Mm-hmm. So the elevator says going down. And I hear somebody saying, where, which one? And it was Steve. And I looked and I said, Steve, the elevator's not going to answer you.
Yeah, that sounds like Steve.
Yeah,
I mean, I love him. He's funny. He's interesting. He's super talented. Yeah.
Yeah. Melanie's watching. She said the Dwayne Barry story arc is what hooked me on the X-Files.
Yeah, good. Hey, Melanie, how's it going? I completely agree. Those were really good episodes, and that's the other thing is I not only was I lucky enough to be on the show, but I was lucky enough to be involved in some of the very best episodes. I think maybe I'm biased, but like Tunguska and Terma, some of the episodes that happened in Russia, I just thought were some of the best that the show did. I was lucky.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Were you happy with your character's demise, and was that scene difficult for you?
No, I wasn't happy with my character's demise. First of all, Mitch Pileggi did it, and
He did.
I'll never forgive him for that. But I put it this way: I kind of like the way he died, but I felt to be honest with you, I thought it was premature. I think Krychek would have been great in the first couple of movies, and not because I like to work, but because I just thought he was a important part of that show, and then important enough to keep a storyline going for sure. And they brought him back as a ghost, which I didn't 100% understand. But these things happen, they happen.
Right.
Listen, those guys that wrote and produced and made that show, let's see, a lot of years and a lot of episodes. Those are back in the day when they were doing 22 episodes and not 10 or 12. And guys like Bob Goodwin and Kim Manners and Rob Bowman are kind of the unsung heroes a little bit of that show. I mean, of course, Chris and Frank and all those guys are so super talented, but there's guys that brought real flavor to that show that don't maybe sometimes get the recognition that they deserve. It was it could have been a show that kind of went under the wire a little bit if it wasn't for some of the guys that really brought flavor to that show.
For sure.
Yeah.
And as you know, they came back and did a revival for season 10. Were you ever asked to be a part of it?
I was not, but I spoke to Frank Spotnitz when I saw him last time I saw him, and he said that there was talk of doing an exclusively Krychek episode, like what they did with Mitch. But it didn't happen. They had limited time to tell the stories they wanted to, which is a drag because I think that could have been pretty interesting. And I don't know if the show is ever going to come back in any shape or form again. But if it does, I hope I'm part of it because like I said, I just think I would be better now.
Right.
Yeah.
Valerie's asking, have you watched the X-Files revival episodes?
No.
Okay.
I watched the first season, but not the second.
Okay. I thought season 11 was better. Season 10, I thought season 11 was really well done because I think they rely too much on David and Jillian personally. They build the story. They have so many great supporting casts, and they were just kind of putting them in for one scene. And, I felt like they were underutilizing them. In season 11, as you said, they gave Mitch an episode. They explored, they brought Monica Reyes back. They did more of the Smoking Man. They kind of took the pedal off David and Jillian a little bit.
Well, I mean, that was those guys are also busy, and maybe they, who knows? But I know that in season 10, I think the Lone Gunman had like a one scene that was like a flashback.
Yeah,
which I don't know. Like those David and Jillian and Mitch obviously were the thrust of that show, and would never have been the same without them, or as good without them. But I do feel, and I'm not even speaking of myself, but I do feel like there was people on that show that really brought that were integral to making the show what it ended up being.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Looking back at the X-Files, is there one or two or particular episodes that you look at and you feel most proud of as far as your work?
Well, we talked already about Terma and Tunguska, and I like those storylines. I like what they did production wise, and that's another thing I was going to say. Guys like Kim Manners, Rob Bowman, Bob Goodwin, the showrunner in Vancouver, who is responsible for corralling a room. Emily says, I was so hoping Krychek would live through that bullet. You and me both. You and me both, believe me. I tried. Those guys, that wrangled all the cats in Vancouver and in LA once the show went down there, are really deserve so much of the credit, because I remember one episode, and I was in it, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name right now, but it started on a fishing boat in the middle of the Pacific, and then it went to a graveyard in Washington, and then it was in China and in Hong Kong, and it's like those things are hard to do and hard to produce and hard to physically make happen, and well enough so that the audience believes it, right? But what was your question?
No, you answered it, actually.
No, there was a tail end.
Favorite episode that you're most proud of?
Oh yeah, so and Tunguska and Terma. Where's my glasses?
Melanie says it's a video of you singing with David Duchovny, and you're actually vocally better. You performed in live music other places.
That's not for me to say, unfortunately. Yeah, I used to play in a band. And to see me do it, I did a show called Men in Trees, and they asked me to write and record a song for that show, which I did, and had a great time doing that, because nobody's really ever asked me to sing on camera before, so that was good times. But Tunguska and Terma, because there was a physicality to those episodes. I was being chased by horses, rolling around the back of the bed of a pickup, going down a road and rolling off the back, and being in the gulag with David, and speaking Russian on top of that was. It kind of asked of me all the things that I love to do. Right. It was speaking Russian was really challenging, because I don't know the language. So they put me with a coach, and you can't learn an entire language in like a week and a half. It's impossible. So what I ended up having to do was memorize what the words were and the sounds that they made in order to sound authentic, like an actual Russian accent. Mm-hmm. And also be acting at the same time. So, for example, if I'm saying a line in Russian and you're responding to me in Russian, in the back of my mind, I have to be saying, okay, this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm saying it. And this is what he's saying back to me. And I should respond in an appropriate manner. When the words are not words that you can't do three things at the same time, right? But I tried to. You
have to say them and express them.
You have to say them and express them and sound authentic, while not, when you get into a scene where it's back and forth, I'm talking, you're talking, I'm talking, you're talking, and then it's easy to get lost in what's actually being said, because you're speaking words that are not that you don't understand. I understood them. But when you get into a scene, it's hard to sort of be kind of comprehending and speaking at the same time.
Right.
Love.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Love Tunguska and Terma. Yeah, they were good episodes. They were well-written episodes. They were well-produced episodes. They were exciting. They were fun as hell to do,
Right. Isabella is saying, did you get hate on the streets because of the character? I loved to hate Krychek. He's one of my favorites for sure.
No, listen, I never got hate. I got love to hate, which is a completely different thing. It's and that was my goal. I got to say, I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but that was actually my goal. I didn't want people to know whether they liked me or hated me. When I first started doing that role, and I knew that he was duplicitous because it was in the script.
Right.
I was like, okay, I can't make this guy a good guy who's pretending to be bad, and I don't want to make him a bad guy who's redeemable. So where in there do I find this guy and how to play him, right? So, and really there was very little that he did that was redeemable. So if people say they love to hate me, I feel like I did my job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to mention, you mentioned Vertical Limit earlier. It was a film that I actually really enjoy.
It's a great B movie.
It is. And Scott Glenn's one of my favorite actors.
Scott Glenn was, sorry to cut you off, Don. Scott Glenn was in character all the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he came to the opening night party in like his full wardrobe and hair and everything, right? He didn't talk to anybody. And then I went out to dinner with Robin Tunney and Bill Paxton and him. And he didn't talk to me the whole night. We were sitting at a table that was, a table for four. There wasn't really a big table, and he never looked at me or spoke to me. And I was like, huh. So when I finished eating, I got up, I pulled out my wallet, took out what I owed, and put it on the table, said, see you later. Because I just thought, like, what a rude mofo. And then the movie was over. And then we were doing press for it, and he was the nicest guy you've ever met. Like, he just was the nicest guy, but he was in character all the time. And I kind of didn't pick up on that. I wasn't around him enough to he and I didn't have scenes together really. So, but the guy himself is great. He's like such a nice guy. He's like super friendly and warm, but on set, he was like, or even at the get-togethers, he was very cold and distant, like his character.
Yeah, no, he's great. I love everything. What's that?
What was your question about Vertical Limit?
No, I was going to ask about Scott. You already talked about him. That was my question. I was asking about Scott Glenn.
Great guy, excellent actor, fascinating to watch interview.
Yeah. Wendy saying Vertical Limit is super rewatchable. It's a great film.
It is. There's great sequences in it, right? There really truly is. Martin Campbell directed it. What was the Bond movie that he did? Isabella was in that. Skaruko was in that movie too. Was it Casino? No.
It wasn't Live and Let Die, was it?
No. It was one of the newer ones.
Oh, I haven't seen any of the newer ones.
You haven't?
No, I haven't. No, I like the older stuff.
The very first one with Buddy there, the new
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig, pretty good.
Okay,
pretty good.
I'll check it out. I like Mads Mikkelsen. I think he's the bad guy in it. So,
but that again, like, this is the thing. I sort of honestly feel like I've been really, and I'm not trying to make myself sound cool. I just feel like I've been really lucky. That Vertical Limit was 6 months in New Zealand. I got paid handsomely for it. I got to live in New Zealand for 6 months. They would spend weeks doing these big sequences that I was either a part of or I wasn't a part of. And if I wasn't a part of them, like, I'd rent a mini, like a camper, and go off and travel New Zealand for weeks at a time, right? And like live on a beach. And it's, they rented me a house on a cliff over a lake, had a boat. There was a golf course nearby. It was it just couldn't have gotten any better. It was just really awesome.
Very cool. Well, I want to ask you, you played a popular character in Supernatural, Elliot Ness.
Yeah, I did. Actually, here. Somewhere here.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great film.
That was really fun, like they built all those suits, they had a tailor make all those old timey suits. They, the fedora and the shotgun, that's also like fulfills like sort of a fantasy for me, right? To be able to do that kind of stuff. And I in the last season, I was really hoping they were going to say, hey, let's bring back Elliot Ness. And I thought, wouldn't that be cool if they took Elliot Ness out of past and brought him to 2019 or 2020. That'd be a good story idea. And I was going to send it to them, and I thought, I don't know. Do they want to hear from me? I'm not really sure. So that was maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity, but I would have loved to have done that again too.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about working with Jared and Jensen? Everybody says great things about them.
Well, it's a ditto. They what I can't even remember what season that was, but 82 or something like that. Those guys have been there for so long that they could easily afford to be distant or cold or bored or whatever, because I've seen that on shows from people, and they were great. They just they just were great. They were super friendly, professional, prepared. That's going to be one of the things that people will remember about that show, is that those two guys, all these shows, right? They're all the dynamic of the way the show runs and operates always starts at the top. And those guys were just solid individuals.
Yeah, you could tell they really loved being on the show and they had fun with it, and they carried it through till season 108.
Exactly.
Well, along with revivals of The Outer Limits and V, you recently did an episode of the revival of The Twilight Zone.
I did.
Your episode was the classic Nightmare at 30,000 Feet.
Yeah.
Can you talk about working with Adam Scott, and had you seen the prior versions of this episode?
Of course, I've seen the previous one, the original one. It's that script, unfortunately, changed a fair bit just prior to production and sort of during filming. The pilot that I played in the original script had quite a bit bigger role in it, and was sort of responsible for some of the stuff that happened, and was involved in a lot of the plane going down and all that kind of stuff. And as time went by, those things started to get shaved. A lot of storylines started to get shaved off the edges of that thing, so I ended up having what ended up on the screen was not what the original script was that I had agreed to. But that said, Adam was great, and fun. I mean, you want to talk funny and charming, right? Like, the guy just fantastic and interesting, and very much wanted to do the best job he could, and it was a good experience. They injected a lot of money into that little franchise, and I think it's all on screen. Like, they really cared, it seemed.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Laura's watching. She said Canadian cinema unfortunately arrives in Brazil little. Some of the productions you participated in, I was never able to watch, like Crimes of Mike Redkit and other Bruce Sweeney films. Do you like playing bad guys or good guys more?
So if you were to see Mike Redkit, that's about a good. That's kind of about a bad guy who's sort of trying to be good unsuccessfully. He's too stupid to be good. But I don't like playing good guys or bad guys. It's just they're too. That's too one-dimensional for me. I'm much more interested in playing. And I've said this a number of times too, but bad guys who are trying to be good and good guys who just can't help but be bad. It's just way more interesting to play, and there's a lot more meat on that bone always. And I think any character I take, I don't ever say to myself, is this guy a good guy or a bad guy? I don't ever do that.
Right.
I think, what does he want, and how's he going to go about doing it, and how is that different than how I would go about doing it, and what are his upsides and what are his downsides? And because everybody's obviously got both, right? Right.
And everybody's definition of bad is different. So
exactly right.
One is watching, just one. Any type of character you like?
I thought there was more than that. Any type of character that you would like to play and that has not been appeared. It's a good question.
Would you like to play like a psycho, like wearing heavy prosthetics and like a creature?
I feel like I've kind of done that. I did a Outer Limits where I played a robot, and there was a lot of that. There was a lot of prosthetics. There was a lot. So I feel like that's I've done that already. I'd like to sing and dance more, for sure. I'd like to play musician. I would like to, I think, there's other aspects of my life that I don't get to investigate on a set or as an actor, right? Or very rarely.
Right. Cool.
So yeah, something to do with music for sure.
Right.
Sure.
Isabel,
NCIS, which participation is your favorite? CSI because it was I was there longer. I think the character had a little bit more impact. I got to make out with Mark Helgenberger, which at the time was pretty exciting, and it was. I felt more a part of that family. It's always challenging because I've done a number of guest stars in my life where you go in and you're in and you're out and you don't really get to meet anybody and you sort of do your job and you leave because excuse me. One of the best experiences is being there and being a part of it and feeling a part of like the product, as opposed to just having a little small bit of influence and then leaving.
Right, for sure.
Go ahead.
Well, I do want to mention coming up next, you're in Stephen King's The Stand, the new TV version that's coming out.
Yes.
What can we expect from the miniseries? What can we expect that's different from the miniseries that you can talk about?
I think if you read the book, and I think if you saw the original television version of that book, I think you'll find this one hews much closer to the novel. They've got a lot more time. They got 9 hours to tell that story. Where's that book? The book is.
Yeah, it's a brick.
The book is that thick.
Yeah. Yeah, covers your whole head.
It's as big as my head. There's so much story in there, and I think that this gave them a much better opportunity to tell a bigger story. And I think the cast is great. Alexander Skarsgård, Whoopi, on and on and on. It's just a real talented group of people, and the people that were making the show, I think, really cared to make it as best as they possibly could. I think there's a lot more grit in this version than the original. It's going to be fascinating to see how people react to the storyline, given where we are in the world right now.
Right.
Or whether people will even, quite frankly, I mean, that's got to be on the minds of the people who are putting it on television are people going to want to tune in and watch a show about a pandemic, right?
Close to home, yeah.
Yeah. So it remains to be seen, but I know that the people that put the show together cared.
Right. Can you say anything about your character?
It's a bit peripheral, my guy, but he's definitely there. He's part of the body crew in Boulder, Colorado. He's one of the guys who is responsible at first for collecting all the dead bodies and disposing of them. In the book, there's fascinating talk of bulldozing bodies into the Pacific and stuff like that, right? Because 99% of the world's population dies. So there's a lot of cleanup, and so that's where my character starts, and then kind of has a bit of an arc from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So aside from The Stand, anything else in the works, or anything else coming out that you want to mention?
No, I will tell you that our industry completely shut down in March. We have these two babies. Crystal is working right. There's two of us. There's two babies. So Crystal is working now on a show called my mind's going completely blank. Which
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass, and his name Michael
Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
I've not met the guy yet. Crystal talks about him all the time. She's crazy about him. But Midnight Mass is his third installment after The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor. So this is a third separate story. And so point being that Crystal's working right now. So one of us has to be here because we don't want to have a live-in person, and we don't. If I were to get a job and our days crossed, we'd be in deep trouble because we have 2 babies that need to be taken care of. So that's what I'm doing right now when Crystal's at work, is I'm taking care of babies.
Very cool.
So her show ends in December, and then it'll hopefully be my turn to get something fun and exciting after that.
I'm sure you will.
It's been a weird thing, right? I mean, everybody's dealing with this. Everybody. The show must go on, however, apparently. So, Crystal goes to work, and they're PPE'd up. They've got masks. They've got shields. They've got, everybody's. It's like working, in a laboratory. And but they're getting it done. They're getting it done.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Wendy's saying, thanks for doing this, Nick. Looking forward to someday doing X Fest 3. You've made the first 2.
Great. Listen, and I'm looking forward to these one-on-one chats, no question. I always do. And in fact, it's better because I always want to spend time talking to people, and quite often the people that run these conventions want you to get through the line as quickly as possible. And I always feel like people get burned when you're not able to spend enough time with them. You spend an hour in a lineup, you should have time to get to know the person that you're coming to speak to. And so this is a really good way to do that. But I got getting on a plane and going. Flying to conventions in different cities and different places is just awesome, right? It's just awesome.
Right. I have to bring one more fan question in. My buddy Bob, who's a fellow Canadian. Bob. He's a musician. Does magic too. He's asking what it was like working with Michael Chiklis.
That's a funny question. I don't know why it's funny, but it's funny. Look, Chicky's a great guy. He's very different than the character he played, right? Like just a very different guy. Still kooky and sense of humor and all that kind of stuff, but he's just what was he, like 32 or something I can't even remember how young he was when he was playing that role, but he's playing like a 45-year-old guy, but he's a young guy. So when the cameras were rolling, he was goofy and funny and lots of energy, and he was good to everybody. Again, you do a show, the way the show ends up being to be on or to be around, or even I think what the final product is, it really hinges on what happens at the top. Can you hear that, by the way? Listen.
No. I heard a little bit of a scream or something, but it's not loud. It's not
baby.
It's not.
It's a little girl. It's not like nobody's being. There's no human sacrifices going on.
That's what they all say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw Michael Chiklis at a convention in California about 5 years ago. He was just walking around checking it out, and I said, Michael Chiklis, and he goes, "Man, I've been insulted in the past, but that's an ugly motherfucker."
So what he said.
And then somebody else stopped him, and he says, "I'm not that guy. Stop insulting me." And he he wouldn't take photos or anything. But
he's a funny guy, nice guy. Last time I saw him, I was down in LA. I was at his house, and that was a number of years ago. And then I talked to him on the phone because we have mutual friends, and that guy was over here, and so we called him. And that was probably 3, 4, 5 years ago. But a good guy, lots of fun.
Very cool. Well, my final question I'm going to ask. I ask everyone I talk to. I'm going to put you on the spot, but I love hearing the answers. If you could pick one dream actor to co-star in a film with you and one dream director to direct it, who would you pick? And they both have to be alive, and they have to be people you've never worked with before.
And what? They can't be people I've worked with
before.
Oh, man, that's brutal. Jimmy Stewart's dead, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Oh, man. Raquel Welch. Wow. And Martin Scorsese. So it would be me and Raquel Welch in a Martin Scorsese film. Can you imagine that?
Unreal.
Let me put you on the spot. What do you think the story would be?
I think it would probably be you being her doctor. Because she's older than you, and and she falls in love with you because she likes.
Because why does she fall in love with him?
Well, because, she's kind of like an older actress that everybody's kind of forgotten about, and you're her doctor, and you're taking care of her, and you're nurturing, and she kind of misses that. I think I probably watched too many Lifetime movies recently.
So it's sort of like Driving Miss Daisy, but with me, Raquel Welch.
Yeah. I think it would be somewhere along those lines, and then you turn out to be a serial killer, and she kind of has to cope with that, and then eventually helps you start killing people.
You know what? It's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I'm gonna write that down. Me and Raquel Welch.
Yeah.
And Martin. Of course.
Although I think that sounds more like a David Cronenberg film.
It might be a Cronenberg film. You're right. Yeah. Oh, listen. A real honest answer to that would require some thought, and my brain's too small for that. But I am going to think about that.
Okay, Jenny would watch that.
I'd watch that. That's funny. That's funny.
Well, that's going to do it for this one, Nick. We're a little over an hour.
Yeah,
thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me. It's always a joy working with you and getting to hang out.
Yeah,
and,
ditto.
Hopefully we can get back to doing this in person soon.
Yeah, I'd like that a lot too. And I wanted to say this off the beginning, but I was so nervous that I didn't. I just really, truly hope that wherever, if you're watching this, wherever you are, whatever part of the world you're in, the United States gets a lot of focus around this whole thing. I'm in Canada. I'm a Canadian. But I know there's challenges and real heartbreak and for people all over the world. So if you're watching this, I hope that you're safe and that you're content and that you got what you need in order to get by. And this too shall pass.
Absolutely. And the pandemic doesn't have to stop your con fix. If you'd like to have a chat with Nick, we'll be doing Zooms right after this. So you can still go over and book those at fullempirepromotions.com, as well as autographs and video greetings. Thanks, Nick. We'll see you in a little bit in the Zoom.
Thank you, Don. My pleasure. And hello, everybody. And I just send all my best to everyone watching.
All right, man. See you soon.
See you.
Bye. Thanks so much to everyone who watched. As you can see, Nick has some great stories. Really nice guy to chat with. So we'll leave the sales open for the Zooms for another few minutes. If you're looking to go over to fullempirepromotions.com, you can have your own chat with them. And thanks again. We have more Q&As coming. Tomorrow we're doing Euro legend Ian McCulloch at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then Sunday, Cassie DePaiva from Evil Dead 2. And many more to come after that. If you have a Zoom currently booked with Nick, you can go and click on that link at your designated time. And we'll see you in a bit. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good weekend.